He was booed at the Australian Open, the tournament he'd won 10 times. He was booed at Wimbledon. He was booed at the US Open. In 2020, he hit a ball in frustration and accidentally struck a line judge. They kicked him out of the tournament. In 2022, they deported him. He spent days in an immigration detention center. And yet, this is the same man who won 24 Grand Slams, more than anyone in history. So why did the world hate the greatest player to ever live? The answer isn't pretty, but it's the reason Novak Djokovic became unstoppable. This is Novak Djokovic, 24 Grand Slam titles, more than Federer's 20, more than Nadal's 22, more than anyone in tennis history, male or female. He's spent 428 weeks at number 1, a record that may never be broken. He's earned over $180 million in prize money. He's the only man to win all 9 Masters 1000 tournaments twice. By every statistical measure imaginable, he's the greatest tennis player who ever lived. But here's the paradox that defines his entire career. The better he got, the more people hated him. While Federer was called the maestro and Nadal the warrior, Djokovic became the villain. The crowds that should have been celebrating greatness were actively rooting against it. The more titles he won, the louder the boos became. How does the most successful player in tennis history become the most despised? And more importantly, how did that hatred fuel the very dominance that created it? To understand how deep this hatred ran, we need to look at the evidence, and it's absolutely brutal. September 6th, 2020, US Open 4th round. Djokovic is down a set to Pablo Carreño Busta. In a moment of frustration, he casually hits a ball backward without looking. The ball travels at high speed and strikes a female line judge directly in the throat. She immediately collapses, gasping for air. The entire stadium falls silent. Tournament officials rush to help her. Within minutes, the decision is made. Automatic disqualification. The world number 1, undefeated in 2020, is out of his own tournament for the first time in his career due to a default. The tennis world erupted. Social media exploded with criticism. Former players called it inexcusable. The headlines were merciless. Djokovic's meltdown costs him everything. But that was just the beginning of his nightmare. January 5th, 2022, Melbourne Airport, 11:30 p.m. Djokovic's plane touches down in Australia for the tournament he's dominated like no other player in history. Instead of being welcomed as a 10-time champion, he's immediately detained by border officials. His visa is cancelled on the spot. He's driven to the Park Hotel in Carlton, an immigration detention facility housing asylum seekers and refugees. For 4 days, the greatest Australian Open champion in history shares a building with people fleeing war and persecution. The images were devastating. Djokovic behind hotel windows, unable to practice, unable to prepare, unable to defend his title. His legal team fights desperately. Tennis fans around the world watch in disbelief. On January 16th, 3 judges unanimously uphold the government's decision. Novak Djokovic is deported from Australia and banned for 3 years. Think about the insanity of that moment. The man who had won more Australian Opens than any player in history, banned from Australia. Even when he returned in 2025, the hatred followed him like a shadow. During his 4th round retirement due to injury against Alexander Zverev, sections of the crowd actually booed him. This is a man who had given them 10 championships, countless 5-set classics, moments of pure tennis magic. And they booed him while he was physically suffering. At Wimbledon 2024, after defeating the crowd favorite Holger Rune, the hostility was palpable. Djokovic sarcastically cupped his ear to the crowd, blew kisses, and said good night to the hostile audience. The 7-time Wimbledon champion was being treated like a pantomime villain at the sport's most prestigious venue. But perhaps the most telling moment came all the way back in 2008. After beating Roger Federer in a brutal Australian Open semi-final, Djokovic's mother, Diana, declared to the media, "The king is dead. Long live the king." The tennis world never forgave the Djokovic family for that moment of brutal honesty. From that day forward, he was marked as the outsider who dared to challenge the established order. Tony Nadal, Rafael's uncle and former coach, explained the perception perfectly. Over the years, Novak's gestures and theatrics have fueled doubts about the authenticity of his injuries. The tennis establishment had decided Djokovic was the villain and every action would be viewed through that lens. Here's what everyone missed, what the media never understood, what his critics couldn't see. Novak Djokovic didn't just survive the hatred, he weaponized it. While other players crumbled under hostile crowds, while champions like Andy Murray struggled with the pressure of expectation, Djokovic discovered something extraordinary. Every boo was fuel. Every hostile crowd was extra motivation. Every moment when the entire stadium wanted him to lose became the exact moment he played his best tennis. The evidence is overwhelming. Wimbledon 2019 final against Roger Federer. The crowd was so biased, it felt like a home game for the Swiss maestro. Federer had 2 championship points on his own serve. The entire center court was on its feet, willing their hero to victory. But Djokovic saved both points with incredible returns, then won the match in 5 sets. When asked about the crowd afterward, he said simply, "I realized that I can't control what people think. I can only control my game." Australian Open 2012 final against Rafael Nadal, 5 hours and 53 minutes. US Open 2015 final against Federer. The crowd booed him during the trophy ceremony. Cincinnati 2023 final against Carlos Alcaraz. At 36 years old, written off by many, Djokovic saved championship point and won in 3 sets. The young Spaniard was the crowd favorite, the future of tennis. But Djokovic fed off that energy, using their disappointment as motivation. As Australian player Thanasi Kokinakis perfectly put it, "If the crowd makes him pissed, pack your bags." This wasn't accidental. Djokovic had discovered what sports psychologists call oppositional motivation. While most athletes need support and encouragement, he thrived on adversity. The more people wanted him to fail, the more determined he became to succeed. Patrick Mouratoglou, former coach of Serena Williams, explained it perfectly. Rafa and Roger were the biggest superstars of tennis, but Novak came in and beat both of them, and the crowds hated him for that. But instead of changing his approach to win popularity, Djokovic doubled down on excellence. His cold demeanor wasn't a personality flaw. It was psychological armor. His controversial statements weren't mistakes. They were calculated moves to maintain his outsider status. He understood something that his rivals didn't. In individual sports, you don't need to be loved. You just need to be unbeatable. The deportation from Australia. It made him hungrier than ever. When he returned in 2025, he was more motivated than players half his age. The boos at Wimbledon? They sharpened his focus like a blade. The criticism from the media? It became his daily fuel. Even his greatest rivals recognized this transformation. Roger Federer admitted, "He made me a better player." Rafael Nadal said, "Without him, my career would be very different." They understood that Djokovic's ability to channel negativity into performance had elevated the entire sport to new heights. John McEnroe, never one to hold back criticism, defended him at the 2025 Australian Open. "They can't possibly be booing him. The guy is a battler." Even the most outspoken voices in tennis recognized the injustice. Paul McNamee, Australian tennis legend, was ashamed of his country's treatment. "The way we treated him in COVID, kicking him out, I was ashamed. It was a shocker." The numbers prove the strategy worked. Djokovic has won 12 Grand Slams after turning 30, more than most players win in their entire careers. He's saved match points 11 times in his career and won the match. His record against top 10 players is 255 wins and 111 losses, a 69.7% win rate against the best players in the world across 2 decades. This is what happens when you stop trying to be liked and start focusing on being great. This is what happens when you turn hatred into fuel. Novak Djokovic's story completely redefines what we think we know about champions and greatness. We're taught that great athletes need support, encouragement, and love from the crowd. We believe that champions thrive on positive energy and adoration. Djokovic proved the exact opposite. He showed us that sometimes the greatest fuel isn't applause, it's adversity. That sometimes the most powerful motivation isn't being the hero. It's proving every single doubter wrong. That sometimes greatness isn't about being loved, it's about being absolutely undeniable. The tennis world wanted a villain, so Djokovic gave them one. But in doing so, he became something far more valuable and far more rare. The greatest player in the sport's 150-year history. His legacy isn't just 24 Grand Slams or 428 weeks at number 1 or 180 million in prize money. It's the lesson that you don't need the world's permission to be great. You just need the courage to be yourself, the determination to prove everyone wrong, and the mental strength to turn hatred into fuel. In the end, Novak Djokovic didn't just win tennis matches, he won the ultimate psychological battle. The one against expectation, against popularity, against the desperate human need to be loved. And in winning that battle, he became truly unstoppable. Before hitting the best shots ever, I need to ask you for a quick favor. If you are finding this breakdown valuable, please take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch without subscribing. It costs you absolutely nothing, but it makes a huge difference for us to keep bringing you this unfiltered analysis that cuts through the mainstream media spin. The greatest champions aren't always the most popular. Sometimes they're the ones brave enough to be hated for their excellence, strong enough to stand alone, and smart enough to use that isolation as their greatest weapon. Who's the most misunderstood champion in sports? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to KT Tennis for more breaking coverage of the stories that are reshaping our tennis world. Because while everyone else is telling you what you want to hear, we're here to tell you what you need to know. The uncomfortable truths, the hidden psychology, the real stories behind the headlines. Hit that subscribe button and let's dive deeper into the psychology of greatness together.